Sand beneath your feet, good music, and daring to flirt on a mild summer evening. Mexicans want happy tourists.
Our livelihood is almost 100% dependent on tourists. Without them, everything falls apart.
But there is also COVID, a virus that knows no vacation.
There has been an exponential increase of infections since the beginning of the new normal.
Sayulita is located on the west coast of Mexico, which is normally a tourist magnet, if it weren't for the pandemic. The day has just begun, and normally Beto Placencia would be taking out his first tourists. The beach would already be crowded, and the 33-year-old's tours would be fully booked.
Do you want to learn to ride a horse?
The morning doesn't make him any income, like most of the days and months before it. His savings are exhausted. Although Beto is an optimist, his concerns are growing with each day.
For me, it's very hard. The animals need to eat, whether they work or not. I have to care for them, just like my family. That's hard.
Once again, Sayulita is pretty much the sleepy fishing village that Beto remembers from his childhood. With the pandemic came the lockdown. After that ended, everyone looked to those tourists who dared to go on vacation. Without them, there's no income, and it's a matter of sheer survival.
Our tools, hooks, and a spear.
There is no state support. Beto must help himself. He was born here and knows how much nature can provide. Together with his son and his father, he now goes out fishing every day. And he hopes to get enough from the sea to make a small profit.
See you later.
Beto knows his way around. An octopus likes to hide in the rock, just like the lobster. Oysters are back-breaking work. A small catch after an hour. It is actually off-season for these sea creatures.
There are many lobsters, but they're still too small. We only get as much as we need. The pandemic is forcing us to fight for our survival, just like everyone else.
A single tourist boat passes by. Beto misses the guests, and not only for financial reasons.
I like to make friends, and it's nice to get to know other parts of the world. And since I don't have the money to travel, I get to know the world through the tourists, who talk to me about their countries, and I imagine them.
They exchange a few words, swap some beer for oysters, and for a moment, many worries are almost forgotten. After hours at sea, Beto has to sell his catch of the day to Karen, the fishmonger.
Look at this oyster. It's as big as my hand. What do you say?
Let's count them.
Karen had to close her village shop but carries on from home. She could no longer pay the rent for her store. The restaurants didn't buy enough of her food, and walk-in customers stayed away. Nevertheless, she takes Beto's catch.
That'll help us with household costs for about 2 or 3 days.
The people in Sayulita urgently need financially robust tourists who come here to the West Coast, mostly from the US or Canada. And a few have come.
Mexico was open. It was one of the only places, and I was lucky enough to end up here in Sayulita.
Mexico never closed its borders, so the economy could at least keep operating a little bit. Together, guests and locals are creating a carefree atmosphere that could almost make you forget about COVID.
You just get to be human and you're like, I'm going crazy. I need to, so you start to take calculated risks.
Steve and Camby came to Sayulita months ago when they were both fed up with the isolation in the US.
In the US, between everything with COVID and the election and unemployment rates, we really felt like Sayulita was a place that we could get away from that.
The COVID? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure what it is, to be honest. I mean, it's been made out to be such a big problem, but I don't know that it's worse than the flu, and I'm not really ready to give up my liberties over a virus.
The 51-year-old only wears a face mask when necessary. After all, he's among friends. Nevertheless, he is aware that he could infect others or be infected himself. And what then?
I don't want to go to a hospital and be marked as a COVID person either, and I don't have insurance here, so I think I'd probably try to take care of myself the best I could and hope for the best outcome.
The country needs tourists, and people feel they have to get out and move around because the solitude makes them sick.
It's more important to live and exist as we have, and, life is short. You might get hit by a bus or you might get COVID in Sayulita, but I'll take Sayulita any day.
Sayulita is reviving tourism with restrictions. Stores and restaurants are only allowed to be open for 6 hours a day. The hotels are welcoming only 1/3 of their guest capacity. But when the weekend in Sayulita begins, the streets become fuller. More tourists move closer together, and many face masks disappear. Isis Espinosa is a doctor, so she's concerned about the carelessness that she often witnesses.
It's impossible not to think about the fact that it's a risk and that some of these people will soon be my patients. But as a human being, I also understand the desire to enjoy the old lifestyle.
The intensive care physician's day is always full. There's a family that wants to be cared for, 3 generations under one roof. And the time they spend together is very important to them. But who bit into all those apples?
He always bites all the apples. They're still good for a fruit yogurt, though. That's our fruit situation.
But there are worried looks. Isis and Ivan have the riskiest job in the country. They are doctors who treat COVID patients. The last few months have been tough.
You think you know what to expect, but it can always get worse because someone new is suddenly admitted and you don't know how they're doing.
This has been the daily routine of doctors for more than 6 months.
It gets incredibly hot in this suit. You don't understand what the other person is saying, which sometimes makes you desperate, and you can't breathe well.
Isis feels a special connection with her first COVID patient because he is also a doctor. Tourists come to the clinics often with no symptoms but are still infected, and that could so easily cost the lives of her colleagues.
Hello, doctor, how are you? This is how I look. What do you think? It's important that patients feel safe. They're isolated and have no contact with their families.
The pneumonia was severe, but the scan shows marked improvement. Soon the ventilator will be removed.
He has put himself in danger for other people. He's doing better, and for me as a doctor, this is the greatest satisfaction.
The number of infections has risen significantly due to tourism, say the doctors. Hospitals are becoming overrun time and again. Ivan is worried about his country. An explosion of COVID cases and a new lockdown would be a catastrophe for the people of the region.
It's a thin line. Our country needs the economy, but this can only be done with strict security measures. And the worst thing now is not so much the virus, but people's ignorance.
Ignorance that could have severe consequences for Maria Jose. She works as a hotel concierge and has to get tested. One guest tested positive for COVID.
I like working with tourists, but the risk is always there. The situation is complicated. We also have to make money.
Carelessness means that the doctors do not know when this will end. They have their own families who they do not want to infect. Children who are waiting for a welcome home kiss and a hug and hope that their parents will remain healthy.
If they get sick, then I can no longer be with them. I'm afraid that they will die.
Tourism during a pandemic, the worry of getting sick with COVID, the longing for life, and the need to make a living. It may not be the easiest challenge to bring all of this together, but it's not impossible.
Yes, our whole village could be overrun by the virus. But I think that if we follow the hygiene and social distancing rules, then we can live here together. We will stand firm. If you want to get ahead, you just have to remain optimistic.